This is Kristin Kreuk, and you're listening to Chuck versus the Podcast.
This interview with Kristin Kreuk, excerpted from Chuck versus the Podcast, was in September 2009 while she was shooting Season 3 of Chuck. Enjoy. So, I want to welcome a fellow Canadian to the podcast.
Thank you.
And so, how's your experience on Chuck so far?
It's been really great. It's been really easy and lovely and welcoming, and the people here are great, and the cast and crew are awesome, and they're like a family. So it's really nice to come into, really nice to be welcomed, and it's been light and enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. And you had seen a few episodes before. Are you becoming a fan of the show?
I think it's a really sweet show. I think that there's like a genuineness to the characters that I really enjoy, and the show doesn't take itself seriously, which is also really lovely, and I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. And what about your character on the show, Hannah? What can you tell us about her?
She's a fairly intelligent young woman. She's traveled around the world. She works in IT and loses her job in that first episode that she's in, and ends up going to the Buy More, and she ends up working at the Buy More. And she's really down to earth, but still very worldly at the same time. Mm-hmm.
And so what qualities would you say you share with Hannah?
What qualities do I share with Hannah? I guess I'm worldly. I don't know. I've traveled a lot. Not the IT stuff. Terrible with that. But from what I've seen, like, she has a certain, like, grounded quality that I think that I share.
Mm-hmm. Now, you are skilled at martial arts.
Very skilled.
Mm-hmm. But yet you're not really involved yet in the spy action of the show. So can you see yourself using that skill set?
I could or I couldn't. I mean, it depends what they want me to do here, because I don't know if I'm going to need to whip out my wire work skills. But I loved doing it. It's one of my favorite things to do. I have such a good time. So either way, I'm ready.
Mm-hmm. And how are you enjoying playing comedy?
It's good. I don't have a ton of the comedy stuff, you know. Like I'm a little. It's lighter for me than usual, but I'm not doing a lot of the comedy. But I'm excited to like do more of that because I'm not used to it yet.
Mm-hmm. And how would you compare? You've done a few features now, especially lately. How would you compare working on features versus working back in TV?
It's not that different, except for TV's a longer haul. And you do more work in a day, especially on the show. They do a lot of work in a day on the show, like 8 pages, which for TV, like an hour-long show, is a lot. So it's a big workload that way. Movies, you know, you have more time. Even like you just don't do as much work in the same way. It's more of a lighting thing. The crew does more work.
Mm-hmm. And you also do a lot outside of film and TV. You've got a couple of businesses that you're running. One of them is Girls by Design. What can you tell me about that?
Girls by Design is a company that I developed with my friend, Kendra Voth. And we have our beta ready. We're testing it right now. And it's an online content creation and social networking site for teen girls to help build self-esteem and confidence through action and creation. So that's really what it's about. We've done a bunch of workshops around the world, in Canada, Thailand, here in the States. And that's been so much fun for me and for Kendra. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's girlsbydesign.com?
Yeah, girlsbydesign.com. There's not much there yet, but there will be soon.
Yeah. And you mentioned, at least it's reported online, that you mentioned you wanted to travel to South America at one point.
Yes.
Did you ever get a chance to?
I went to Ecuador with my girlfriends. There's 4 of us, Allison Mack being one of the 4 of us, and we every year now we're going on a wild women's adventure, we call it. So it's really about challenging ourselves as women and bonding as girls. So we went to Ecuador, which was amazing. We went to the Amazon, saw a shaman in the jungle, traveled to the Andes, went horseback riding in the mountains. It was so beautiful. And this year we're going to go to Syria. That's our plan.
Wow. Very cool.
More of a cultural trip.
I highly recommend Peru.
Peru, yes. Yeah. I've heard good things too.
And where else would you like to travel?
I would love to travel everywhere. I really want to spend some time in Africa. I spent a little bit in Morocco when I was shooting, but I want to just go around and really learn about the area, because I think that's one part of the world that I'm not as aware of, and I'd like to learn more about. And I'd love to spend time in Laos. I was in Thailand for a while, but I never got to go up to Laos, and I want to go to Laos. I'd love to go to New Zealand. I've heard it's a lot like British Columbia in some ways, so I want to go there. And lots of places.
And when you travel, you don't do the tourist thing. What's different about it?
I don't. I try to really get a sense of the culture and the people. And I love going places and learning about those regions, because I think that what we were talking about earlier is just that the politics of a region or what's going on culturally is really, with our media, it's really sheltered from us. When you're there and you're with the people, you get a stronger sense of what's going on. And I really, really like that. And I don't go super backpacky generally now, but I try and stay more local or stay with families. Mm-hmm. Unless I'm in India.
Yeah. And you just finished Ben-Hur recently. What's next for you?
Well, I've got this, and then I just produced a short film that's actually second day to camera today in Vancouver, so I'm missing the shoot, which I'm sad about. But I've been working on that, and we want to build some more projects, because I really like producing. It's so much fun.
Mm. Well, we'll be looking out for it.
Yes.
And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
For over 120 interviews with the cast and crew of Chuck, including guest stars like Kristin Kreuk, Tricia Helfer, Timothy Dalton, Scott Bakula, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, go to chuckpodcast.com or blip.tv/chuckpodcast. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.